Hey everyone, it's Ed Kime from over at Quantcha, and in this video we're going to talk about Quantcha Alerts. Quantcha Alerts is a new feature that we've been working on for a while now to help you get configurable notifications that are customized to your specific needs. And of course, they're integrated with your portfolio and your other assets in Quantcha, as well as anything that you've linked, such as your brokerage account. So an alert is pretty simple, right? There's some properties about it, such as the title of an alert, some notes that you want to have reminded when that alert raises, and of course some status controls where you can enable or disable or reset a trigger on a given alert. There's also the conditions for the alert, and this is the important part of the alert. This is where you define when you get notified. So one of the examples is you can create a time frame for your notification. You can also say you want to watch the position of a stock, like a price. Maybe you want to see the implied volatility of an option, or you want to track your portfolio's market value or other information about it. And of course, there's also things like inferred risks, such as assignment risks of options you're holding on to, or upcoming earnings dates. And I'll show you in the demo later on how you can wire these together so that you can set up some pretty customizable, really valuable notifications. Now, after an alert is triggered, it'll be in a triggered state unless you configure a post-trigger action. And we're going to get into that a little bit too, because there's different kinds of alerts you might set up. There's some of the alerts that you're going to set up that you want to fire once and then they can be deleted. There's other alerts that you want to set up and have waiting, and then after they get triggered, they sit there until you manually reset them. And then there's the final set of alerts where you can configure it to automatically reset after a given number of days. For example, maybe every week you'd like to run an alert once a week to check to see if you have expiring options. And you don't want to get notified over and over again. You just want that one notification per week. And I'll show you how you can set that up. So without further ado, let's dive on into the demo. I'm out here on the home page of Quantcha, and I'm already signed in under a personal account. And so I'm just going to click through to take me to the tools. And one of the things we've added on here in the front is a section for I want to manage my alerts. And if you click through, by default, it's not going to have much here, but this is where you can get started if you want to just create alerts manually. For example, you just come in, click create, you define your alert. I'm going to create an alert called always triggers. And I'm going to say some notes here, optionally say, told you. And it defaults to being on, and it will be monitoring. After the alert triggers, you can define what you want that post-trigger action to be. So in this case, by default, it'll do nothing. So you'll have to come back in and reset it. Or you can tell it you want to reset automatically after a given number of days, in which case, once it triggers, it'll wait till either the next day or maybe it'll be 5 days later, depending on how you want the behavior to be. And then finally, you have the ability for it to just delete itself. So for example, if you have an alert, you're looking for a stock to cross a certain price. Once it crosses the price, you want to receive the alert and you want the notification to go away from that point forward, and you could use that. So in this case, I will just say that I want it to do nothing. And this is going to be a simple one where we can now add a set of conditions, and you can add as many of these conditions as you want, and they range across things like a time frame, the property of a stock like its last price, an option property such as a Greek, the assignment for your options in your portfolio or in a specific book, as well as the specific property of a portfolio of a book, such as your overall beta weighted delta or something like that. And then finally, portfolio event, which gets into things like the upcoming ex-dividend dates or earnings announcements for your holdings. So I'm going to start here. I'm just going to set this up, simple alert, every day, anytime, and I'm going to save that. So now that is now monitoring for us, and it will trigger very soon. And when it triggers, we'll get notified and we'll be able to see that. Now, while we're waiting for that to happen, let me just go ahead and step on out and talk about kind of a real world scenario here. Like right now, I'm personally watching Carnival Cruise Lines. As we can see, they've taken a bit of a beating from the 50s down into the teens. And this is a stock that I personally believe in. I think that they're going to recover over time. And so I would be very interested in buying them, especially if they gave us another discount. So if they drop below 14, I might want to set up an alert to let me know so that I can come in and buy it. And this is pretty straightforward stuff. So what I'll do here is I will go ahead and I just refresh the page there. And I'm going to click create an alert. And this will bring me to a partially pre-filled alert ticket here. And I'm going to say CCL under 14. And I'll just set up an alert like that, and I can set the property here where I want to say when the last price is, in this case, less than 14, then alert me. So now we save that, and we've got that. Oh, and speaking of, just as a side note, we've got this alert just came in for our always triggers. So you see we've got our notes in here. It told us what the conditions were that made it fire, and we can now go ahead and delete it or do whatever we want to it. I could also reset it and say, hey, you know what, reset this, and then I don't want to see this notification for another 5 days. So it'll reset it 5 days from now, and then after that it'll trigger immediately. So now I've got 2 alerts set up here. Pretty straightforward stuff. Another option I might want to do is, instead of, for example, a stock like Carnival, maybe what I would want to do is maybe I would want to know about the specific property of an option. So if I go out to, maybe I want to see the June expiration for the option chain, and I would track and say, all right, well, let me go ahead and sell, or I want to set up an alert here so that if I want to track what the options are for the tens, I would be able to come in here and create an alert for that. Maybe I want to, actually what I'll do is I'll create an alert to buy the 15s. If the 15s, let's say if the offer for them comes down and is less than, let's say, a 50 cents. So if it's less than 50 cents, I'd like to get that, and I'll say CCL 15 call for June under 50 cents. And I think that's a good price. I actually wasn't paying attention. But if that happens, if that triggers, I want it to let me know, and then I want it to delete, so the way I can go in there and make the trade on that. So this is kind of familiar stuff. If you've done alerts in a lot of places, this stuff is not too out of the ordinary. But it gets really cool once we start looking at portfolio stuff. So in this point, I have a paper portfolio here where I've got 3 positions open. I've got a covered call in Apple. I've got an iron butterfly in Microsoft, and I've got a short put on Shopify. Now there's a bunch of data here and a bunch of information, and if I'm sitting here in front of my portfolio, I can start to read into stuff. I can see I've got a dividend coming up on Apple, I've got earnings coming up on Shopify. I can see that this is an iron butterfly, but this price is definitely much closer to the low end. So there's a lot of information and risk that's at hand here. But maybe what I want is, over time, for the tools like Quantcha to do more work watching this for me. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up an alert here, and we've got a few different places we've integrated alerts now. One is under Actions. We can create a portfolio alert, event alert, and assignment alert. Portfolio is around property. For example, if you want to track your overall theta or your beta weighted delta or your market value, you could create a portfolio alert, and it'll take this entire portfolio and watch it for you. You can create an event alert, which will be for things like ex-dividend and earnings dates, or an assignment alert, which will just look at all the options and let you know when you're at an assignment risk based on how you specify it. But what I'm going to do here is I'll create a simple one. This Shopify book here, I sold this put almost $60 a share. It's now down to 40-ish or so. But at the time it was sold for almost 30,000. I'm looking at it being I could close it for about 22,000. Maybe I'd be happy if I could close it for, let's say, when it gets to the point where I can close it for less than 10,000. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to scroll in here and I'm going to create a book alert. And this brings me to the alert system here, and I'll say, close shop to let me know. And what I'm going to do is also make it so that one will delete as soon as it's available. And I'm going to say, for this portfolio property in my paper account that's under the shop book, I'm going to come in and I'm going to look at my market value. And if I can see that my market value is greater than, in this case, I want it to be greater than 10,000 or negative 10,000. Because remember, we're short that. So the market value is going to be a negative amount because we'll have to pay it in order to close it up. So I will do that. Oh, by the way, if you accidentally hit add another condition, you can add as many conditions as you want. You can very easily delete them and just go ahead and say, yep, I want to delete, because you really just want the conditions there to be able to set that up. So now I'm going to save this so I can close shop. And that one shouldn't trigger. I mean, none of these should be triggering anytime soon. So I'll let them go. But I'll go back to my portfolio, because one of the other things you might have noticed is that we have this Shopify earnings coming up. And, this happens to be within the next week, but maybe it's further out. But I want to stay on top of these things. So what I would do is I would create an event alert. And the event alert, I'm going to call, let's say, earnings warning. And this is specifically going to be letting me know, it'll alert me when a held position is approaching earnings. So that's what that's about. So in this case, I want to know when the earnings announcement date is within 7 days. And when that happens, I'm going to reset it automatically after another 7 days. So this way, once a week, it'll let me know. And so I'll go ahead and I'll save that. And so now I've got that warning. And that should trigger pretty soon because of the fact that we hold that one position with Shopify. Another example is the dividend. But the dividend is important for two reasons, right? One, we care about the dividend because we might care about the income from it. But the second thing, which is just as important, is if we have call options, if they're short, we're likely to get assigned. And if they're long, there's a very good chance, obviously in the money. If they're short in the money, we're likely to get assigned. And if we're long in the money, it might make sense for us to do the assignment or at least to sell it off in order to trade it differently. And so rather than have to be able to put in just the dividend alert, you can just say that you want to create an assignment alert across the entire portfolio. And this one we'll just call option assignment. And we will say that we want to watch out for the risky assignments, especially around our ex-dividend date. And this is another one where I think that once we'll set it so it's a week apart, and this way we get notified every, let's say we'll reset it every 4 days, and then we'll set it up so that it'll check every 7 days out. So we'll get a couple duplicates in there if we're still at risk, but I'd much rather have that. And I'm going to set it up, I want a 20% risk of assignment. And so right now you enter this as a decimal. So 0.20 will say 20% risk of assignment against our paper book across all this. And so now it's going to watch that. So now we're watching out for option assignment as well. And then another thing that came up here is I'm holding on to this Microsoft position here, which is an iron condor, or an iron butterfly rather. And as you can see, the butterfly is starting to get out of whack. And a lot of times I like to open up a position like a condor or a butterfly as a delta neutral trade, and then I will go in and I will add elements to it. Like I'll trade against it to sell more premium when I see opportunity, or to buy up options when they look cheap. So in this case, we can see that we're actually getting, if we go back to portfolio, we can see our Greeks are getting out of line. And what we would really want for our delta for a trade like this is maybe you want to keep it within plus or minus, we'll just say 10. And so what I can do here is I can create a book alert for that. And this book alert, it'll be our Microsoft Delta Neutral book. And I'll just keep track of that there. And the notes we want to have included in the mail would say it's raised when the Microsoft book is out of our delta range. And in this case, paper portfolio. And again, if you have a linked portfolio, like for example one of your other accounts, they'll show up here. So you'll be able to do this against your TD Ameritrade, Tradier, Score Priority, and other portfolios as you need to. So we've got that. We've got Microsoft at defaulted to because I clicked that link. And I'm going to say that I want my delta to be I want it to alert me when it's outside the exclusive range of minus 10 to 10. So if it's below minus 10 or above 10, then it should let me know, because I will want to be able to go in and deal with that. So now we've got our alerts run. We'll give this a second to go through and trigger. And then as we head out, and we could see they start to cascade in. So I'll just give you an idea. We've got the Microsoft trade came through, letting me know that it's raised when the Microsoft book's out. So it has our text in here, and it gives us the alert saying, hey, for the book Microsoft and account paper, it saw that the delta was not in the range we were looking for. Or another one is the, let's see, we've got that's the always triggers one. The alerts when we're approaching earnings. It identified that Shop was within 7 calendar days of hitting the earnings. Another example we have here is for option assignment. We can see that the Apple call, it identified that in this case we weren't actually close to the expiration for it, because it's still going to expire over a week out, but it saw that we're within 7 days of X dividend, and the time value remaining on the option is worth less than the upcoming dividend. And so it's giving us an alert there. And that alert will come whether we're long or short, because we might want to deal with it either way. But this is just a list of the actions that are in place now. We are working on more actions, and or rather more conditions for the actions. If you have other ideas, of course, as always, please reach out and let us know at hello@quantcha.com. But as things continue, we do wish you good luck and good hunting.